Hello and welcome back to the Dugout podcast. This is episode number 68. Today I am joined by my co-host, as always, Ethan Barlow, to discuss all the weekend's action. The big story of the weekend would have been Hearts going 8 points clear, which is obviously still massive as they defeated Celtic. However, last night, Brendan Rodgers resigned as Celtic manager, and Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney have come in as the interim team. Ethan, we'll just jump right in, mate. Unbelievable news, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's episode 67 actually, just
Oh,
to
oh,
correct you, sorry, but very, very timely indeed. 67, of course, a number very much associated with Celtic, and Celtic grabbed all the headlines this weekend for the wrong reasons. Of course, losing to Hearts in that top of the table clash, as you mentioned. Hearts go 8 points clear, a massive gap at the top, and then the following evening, Brendan Rodgers resigned, relieved of his duties. We don't know as of yet. The Dermot Desmond statement, which we'll get onto, of course, would say that he was relieved of his duties, but the statement also said that Brendan Rodgers resigned. So I don't think you can factually make a sort of statement on that. But no, I think for me, like everyone, massive surprise last night, something that I didn't see coming, and probably one of those moments. Where were you when Brendan Rodgers resigned as Celtic manager? Because I think the last time when he left for Leicester City, it was in the talks and there was murmurs of it. But this one came, for the most part, completely out of the blue when Celtic released that statement at around 10 o'clock last night. So, yeah, massive news. As you said, it'll be really exciting for Celtic fans of a certain age to see Martin O'Neill back in the Celtic dugout. Of course, a very successful manager over 20 years ago. And also for the younger fans that didn't get to see him, they'll get to see Martin O'Neill be in the dugout. So that'll be interesting. But obviously, a massive couple of games ahead for Celtic because in the league, as we know, there's almost no margin for error at this point. And then, of course, there'll be absolutely no margin for error on Sunday in the small matter of an Old Firm derby League Cup semi-final against Rangers.
yeah, it's an absolutely mental week, and a season where Rangers have been at the forefront of sort of managerial changes and controversies around the club and debacles and stuff. Celtic have just went hold my beer, and yeah, Brendan Rodgers last night. Obviously, it was announced that he resigned. I was just, if we're just talking about initial reactions, I couldn't believe it. At the time, I was actually wasn't really paying attention to the news. I was just in my room working on an essay, and then my mum shouts through, "Brendan Rodgers has resigned," and I was like, "What? What?" And I was like checking myself, and then I was checking the official Celtic statement because I was like, surely this is like fake. Surely this is a rumor or something. And then every news outlet was reporting it, and Celtic obviously officially reported it as well. And I so weird that if you think like logically, it does kind of make sense. But I never thought he would depart before his contract expired at the end of the season.
No, I didn't either. I thought he would sort of fight it out and try and claw back the gap to Hearts and win the title at least, because obviously Brendan Rodgers does. I think whether fans like him or not, or debate whether he should have been back and reinstated in charge or still be in charge, or whether he should have been relieved of his duties. Very successful manager over his time at Celtic, and he also said on at least one occasion, I would tend to say multiple times, that he wouldn't be leaving during the course of this season. But obviously, events have transpired, and I think it is something that I would agree with you. I think it's a good time for Brendan Rodgers probably to part ways, and I think it's a good time for Celtic to part ways because it was getting very tedious and stale, certainly between the you'd imagine the relationship, and I think we've got proof of that now with Dermot Desmond's statement that Brendan Rodgers and his relationship with the board and Dermot Desmond as the majority stakeholder was little to a non-existent relationship. And then, of course, on the pitch, the results weren't good enough. Back-to-back defeats in the league for the first time in a few years. I can't remember the exact stat, but and then obviously falling a massive 8 points behind Hearts, where the new Celtic caretaker, interim, whatever you want to call it, manager said on the morning of his appointment as Celtic manager that he believed Hearts would and could win the league. He remarked that on Talk Sport. So, yeah,
Yeah,
Scottish football for you. It's the gift that keeps on
yeah.
giving. And I believe, as
I
you
would
were,
I would also suggest that, since that kind of since he was on Talksport making those comments, how quickly things transpired as well. Because I'd imagine if he knew at the time, or he even had an inkling, he wouldn't have made that statement. And yeah,
yeah,
just
I
in
don't know.
terms
The whole thing, I don't know about you or anybody else, but the whole thing, I think it is, I think Brendan Rodgers probably pushed, but I think Brendan Rodgers was probably the one who resigned. And the reason I think that is because, as you said, there was no sort of incline of it at all. There was no rumours. There was no murmurs. It just came out the blue. And I know the statement seems like Dermot Desmond kind of saying, "Oh well, we were going to do it anyway," type thing. But I think Brendan Rodgers has done well on himself to get out when he could, because I think there was fan pressure was turning on him rather than the Celtic board, and I think he's got out before possibly he tarnishes his reputation completely as a manager. Although Dermot Desmond's comments might have done that.
yeah,
Whether what he stated was fact or not fact, and I'll read some of the things out from that in a minute.
yeah. In terms of not tarnishing his reputation at Celtic, Ethan, I just want to focus on that for a second. Obviously, he really, sort of done himself in the first time when he departed during the middle of the season for the Leicester City job. And then, I don't know, I feel like it's a self-preservation kind of thing. Like you've kind of mentioned, I feel like this in itself might sort of tarnish his reputation with a lot of supporters, because I get them, a lot of them kind of on side with him, and he's not been backed, and perhaps promises were made and were broken. However, Dermot Desmond would lead you to believe that no, he was given all the tools to succeed at everything he wanted. But yeah, perhaps promises were made and broken, like I said, and a lot of fans would sympathise with that. On the other hand, a lot of fans might look at it and go, he's lost the last two games in the league. He's struggling. He's sunk us so far this season, and now he's getting out and leaving us in the worst possible state.
Yeah, I was more making the point of sort of saving his reputation as just a football manager in general. But I agree with your point about Celtic. I think there will still be some fans that don't like what he's done over both uh, tenures, leaving, of course, midway through his third campaign on both spells. And I can, of course, see why Celtic fans aren't happy with that. But I think with context of his previous departure, a lot of fans sort of not agreed with what he done, but they could see why he done it. And I think this time around has provided a lot more of that context to maybe aid Brendan's side on the matter. Because I think, as we know, Celtic fans detested Brendan Rodgers after he left for Leicester City, and I would say if he jumped ship the first time, he was sort of forced to maybe jump off the ship this time. And some of the things in the statement I'm going to read, because I think they are really interesting. I mean, the whole statement is interesting. So if you haven't had the chance to read it yet, I would highly recommend it. It's very entertaining reading. So Dermot Desmond went on to thank Brendan Rodgers for what he's done at the club. Of course, a manager that won I believe 11 out of the 13 trophies available to him across his two spells. And he said, and then he went on to say, in June, both Michael Nicholson and I expressed to Brendan that we were keen to offer him a contract extension to reaffirm the club's full backing and long-term commitment to him. He said he would need to think about it and revert. Yet in subsequent press conferences, Brendan implied that the club have made no commitment to offer him a contract. That was simply untrue. Some of the other thing, what was the other thing that really hit home? I'll need to find it. Here we are. What has failed recently was not due to our structure or model, but to one individual's desire for self-preservation at the expense of others. And Dermot Desmond also went on to pretty much, in other words, say that the sort of criticism and nasty, you could say, comments and banners and protests toward the Celtic board of directors was as a result of Brendan Rodgers. So yeah, he's made some pretty damning statements of the former Celtic now former Celtic manager, and I don't imagine we're going to hear Brendan Rodgers come out and say anything on the matter. I believe he'll go and get another job. But a point that someone we were speaking to last night, Tino from the Celtic Exchange made was that there is a there is maybe a case for Brendan Rodgers to file some sort of lawsuit because I think that definitely, I don't think he will, but there's definitely, you're getting into the realms of what defamation and stuff like this.
Yeah, defamation. It looks, it could be sort of interpreted as they're making sort of statements about his character, although they could shield themselves from that, because although the statement is clearly about him, and that little line you read out, they said individual. So you, you know they're talking about Brendan Rodgers from context, but in that section, you're like, oh, who's this individual? So, aye, but obviously we're not experts on law. I think we did like a few months on it in college, but um, yeah, it's a crazy statement, I think, and he's fully thrown him under the bus. I think it's a thing to maybe get his supporters on side and go, we weren't the ones that were messing it up the whole time. Look, he's left and he's messed us up, and he's the one that's been. We've given him all the tools. We've kept all our promises. We've tried to get him to talk about a new contract, and he's the reason that we're in the place we're in. He got the seal of approval and all the players and all that. So, yeah, very, very interesting statement, trying to simultaneously maybe propel the board back into the good graces of the supporters and trying to sink the reputation of the man who has been sort of publicly coming after the Celtic board for the past few weeks in press conferences. Obviously, the controversial thing last week that feels so insignificant now was the Honda Ferrari. Give me the keys to a Honda Civic, expect me to drive it like a Ferrari. Comments, and he's been sort of making subtle jabs at the board all season, and it seems to have got to a boiling point, a complete breakdown in relationships between him and members of the Celtic hierarchy, and yeah, and he went, stuff this, I'm gone. And
Yeah,
now they've got Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney in. Something you said, Ethan, I can't believe we're saying Martin O'Neill's a Celtic manager in the Big 25. And he might be in the Big 26 as well. So, depending
yeah,
on how quickly the Celtic want to approach getting a new manager. So, absolutely crazy.
yeah. No, exactly. We never got to see the great Martin O'Neill Celtic teams, but that was a very, very long time ago, and the game's moved on a lot since then. I don't want to discredit the man. He's obviously been a great manager in his time, especially at Celtic. But he's now what, years old, is it? 73?
73.
73, and the game's moved on a lot since he was even in his last managerial role at Nottingham Forest in 2019. So, yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think he's going to bring that sort of drive and that old sort of fashion manager. You say that the good man management skills, whereas Sean Maloney, who I think has had a couple unsuccessful managerial spells at Hibernian and Wigan, he'll bring that sort of tactical side of it, and it'll be an interesting dynamic because obviously they need to get it right quick. As I mentioned, there's no margin for error now in the Scottish Premiership, and of course it'll be massive bragging rights for two football clubs that have been pretty much a shambles from top to bottom so far this season.
Yeah.
And I seen last night it's the first time, I believe it's the first time that Celtic and Rangers have switched managers in the in amongst a season ever, which is a ridiculous
Yeah,
stat
because
to
usually
think of.
switching a manager is going well for the other one.
Yeah, but
This
of course it's going
this
well for
season,
the
it's the Jambos are who are
yeah,
on.
yeah, definitely. I don't know if is there much more to cover on this at the moment.
No, I just the thing there. Martin O'Neill was last in charge of Celtic in 2005, right? To put that into perspective for me, for any viewers, maybe, uh, if I'm not exactly sure when he left, if it was at the end of the season, I would have been a few months old, and Ethan would have been coming up for one. so, uh, so that that's absolutely crazy to think about. That a man who was in the Celtic dugout long before we were born as well is now in the Celtic dugout again, 20 years after his departure. But we'll just talk about the game now. I think at the weekend feels it feels insignificant now.
It
It
does.
feels a lot smaller. Um, Celtic still in the headlines from Hearts again, even in defeat. No, but it was a great win for Hearts, a 3-1 victory, and we spoke about how their win against Kilmarnock was a statement. This, Ethan, felt like even more of a statement.
Yeah, it did. It definitely did. And I said last week on the previous episode that I didn't see Celtic going to Tynecastle and getting a victory. My opinion on that slightly changed a little bit after the Celtic's performance and result in Europe in midweek. I thought it was a really good Celtic performance against Sturm Graz. They got the win. They huffed and puffed a little bit in the end. Obviously, massive injuries, and amongst that, I believe they created the most expected goals they ever have since the start was recorded in a European sort of group league phase match. So, but they only managed to score two goals, which I think was the telling sign of Celtic's problems this season. But going into that Hearts game, they started not badly in the first half. It was a pretty even match. Hearts got that goal through Dane Murray, who we'll get on to, and then Celtic got the equaliser. But then in the second half, Hearts were the better team. And I think the worrying thing for a Celtic perspective is that, and I think the Hearts players, Lawrence Shankland and Cammy Devlin, it was after the game, who spoke to the Sky Sports, said that they didn't think it was their best performance. And I didn't think it was either. I thought if you're looking at the sort of performances, I think the one against Kilmarnock was a lot better. But they had the sort of the fight and the will and the digging out a result. They took their chances when they came, and it's a massive, massive 3 points. There's no getting away from that. And 8 points is a massive margin now, and they can look to build on that because, as we know, Rangers have just got a new manager in. I don't believe that even after the weekend's result, as we'll go on to, that everything will be plain sailing from now on. And of course, Celtic don't have a permanent manager at the minute, so it's a
Yeah,
chance for Hearts to really
I just saw a report saying that apparently Celtic are going to contact Ange Postecoglou to gauge his interest of whether he would want to come back to Celtic. What do you make of that, Ethan?
uh, sorry. Well, yeah, that was something we never touched on actually. The possible next permanent manager, and I think of course Ange Postecoglou is the obvious candidate. He struggled And the Premier League, certainly, of course, he did have that European success with Spurs, but sacked after it. And of course, Nottingham Forest was a disaster for him, relieved of his duties after just eight matches. So, yeah, I think he's the obvious candidate. And I think it's whether he would go back to Celtic because he obviously, I think he knows the situation that's in. He knows that there would be massive pressure on him to claw back that gap, which I'm going to say I don't think would be easy with the squad of players he's got and how well and the squad of players' hearts have got at the moment. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one, but I do think Celtic need to sort of move away from trying to relight old flames. They've done it a few times recently when it comes to players. Certainly, you think of Kieran Tierney, Jota. I don't know if I'm missing anyone else. Ross Doohan. I suppose that's not really much of a flame,
Ross
but
Doohan.
well, he used to play for Celtic, so
He's the
kind of. But
Ashes.
yeah, not a big one, but you get what I mean. And of course, managerial wise, Neil Lennon, Brendan Rodgers, Martin O'Neill. So yeah, I can see Celtic going down that road completely, and I think that is the obvious candidate, and he's probably the best manager maybe available to Celtic at the minute because a lot of people talking about Knutson at Bodo Glimt, but
Everyone always
I think
talks about him. I don't think he. Why would he leave Bodo Glimt? You know,
yeah.
he's done so well over there, and he's oversaw an incredible sort of project, and you know he's sort of spearheaded them into European competition, and he's progressed really well. And I don't correct me if I'm wrong, but they're in the Champions League this season. Uh,
Yeah, they're doing pretty well as well. So
so
yeah, I completely agree with you. I really don't see why he would go to Celtic, especially this time. Maybe in the past, following Ange Postecoglou when Celtic were a Champions League club and were maybe able to compete at that level, but miles off that now. And of course, Bodo Glimt are a team competing in the Champions League. I believe he's the highest paid manager by quite a lot in Scandinavia. So yeah, I don't really see why he would go to especially Celtic because you would imagine with the success he's had at that project that there would be sort of clubs sniffing and about, and there's obviously a reason why he's still there and not um, moved to maybe a top five league or something like that. So yeah, I don't see that, and I think Ange Postecoglou is the obvious candidate. But I think if I had to give my thoughts on Brendan Rodgers, I think a fully motivated and driven Brendan Rodgers to give the best for Celtic Football Club is the best manager Celtic could have. And obviously, I think, in my opinion, the board have made a mess of it. And of course, that's probably why the relationship's broke down yet again and why he's no longer the Celtic manager. But of course, they'll have to bounce back, and it'll be really interesting to see how they get in because they're not in a position of luxury like they were last time when Brendan Rodgers left at the top of the league table. They're in a position of very much they need to pick up every point they can because Hearts don't look like slowing down, and I think the weekend symbolised that.
yeah, absolutely. They do not look like slowing down. They are a team fully firing at the moment. They are sort of front three, if you could call it. They're three attacking players: Braga, Shankland, and Kazridis are the three players with the most goal involvements in the league this season. The best sort of, you know, it's funny when you always make like SPFL combined 11s and who's doing well and all that. Um, it's usually made up of Celtic and Rangers players, but I think you'd have to have those three in there. You know, so that's immediately, you know, the front three spots taken up, and they are playing extremely well. And Derek McInnes has got this side. You know, a lot of people will give credit to the sort of analytics, and they absolutely deserve the credit. Tony Bloom deserves credit, but I believe so does Derek McInnes because if you'd asked me what kind of manager you know you would go for to sort of bring this home, I probably wouldn't have picked Derek McInnes as a I don't know what other way to describe it, so I'll just go with it as like a Brighton style manager, if you know what I mean. Um, they usually go for coaches. I'm not saying he's old, but coaches on the younger side who've got sort of expansive ideas about football. And McInnes is maybe traditionally viewed as more of a negative manager. However, this season definitely, I don't think that's the case. He seems to have evolved in himself and got them, or maybe he finally has the tools that he needs. Maybe that's the reason we've not really seen this. Obviously, the formation's not shifted too much, but they're more aggressive. Obviously they've got better players in a lot of the divisions, so they're more ball dominant than they would have been. Although that wasn't the case at the weekend. Celtic had most of the ball, and yeah, they've got quality in sort of every area of the pitch. Cammy Devlin's having his best season, I think, in a Hearts shirt, and he's usually pretty solid. Um, like I mentioned, Kizrides, Braga, Shankland, Craig Halkett. When do we start talking about Craig Halkett in a Scotland shirt? He's been absolutely immense this season. Obvious. So if we're talking about the game, Hearts go in front very quickly through an own goal from Dane Murray. Not a great game for the young lad, unfortunately. We'll get on to the other incident later on, and then so Hearts go in front, and then Celtic equalise very quickly, and you think, oh, you might be thinking, okay, this is the Celtic we know. They've stumbled a little bit, they've went down the Hearts, but now they'll come back and perhaps win the game and gain and gain some points on Hearts. That wasn't the case. They take a 2-1 advantage through Kizridis from the edge of the box. I've seen people even blaming Dane Murray for this one because
Yeah,
he looks like he jumps out the way. It's difficult to tell from that angle because the ball might have already passed them by that point. Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
so, um, yeah, but I think Schmeichel perhaps should have. He was going nuts at Murray, I think, though.
I
After
think I think Kasper Schmeichel was just going nuts at the whole sort of Celtic team in front of him because it was really, really bad defending, especially, well, for I think the three players in the area were Negan, Engels, and Dane Murray. And you look at, I think it was quite obvious early in the match that Kazridis was fancying himself against young Colby Donovan. He breezed past him a few times, and obviously this time he cuts in. Benjamin Negrin's dropped back to help double up, and the whole point of the double up is that Colby Donovan doesn't allow Kazridis to go down the line. Benjamin Negrin doesn't allow him to cut in on his right foot, but he just kind of walks past the Swedish winger in this situation, and then Engels is sort of turning away at it, and then Dane Murray. I think the case for Dane Murray is probably that he's playing with the nerves. He's not got the confidence, especially after what happened in the first half with the horrific own goal, which it can happen to any player. He's weak foot. He goes with it. He's left and obviously makes a mess of it. And I think it's that sort of feeling of I don't want to stick my leg out here in case I deflect it past my goalkeeper. But obviously, in the scenario, he would have been better just going for it. But I think, yeah, he had a nightmare, and ultimately, that decision to play Dane Murray instead of maybe a little bit more experienced Austin Trusty is possibly. Well, I wouldn't say cost Celtic the match because I don't think Celtic were good enough on the day to win the match or get anything from it.
it
But
was
when he's
it was Brendan Rodgers' parting gift. He was sitting there going, "This'll sabotage us. I'll make us lose, and then I'll leave."
Yeah, and I think I thought Dane Murray would play, and the two performances I've seen from Dane Murray this season, albeit against Falkirk and Livingston, he was a decent to solid performer, and I thought he would be able. I didn't think he'd be able to come into the match and be comfortable by any means. I didn't think that would be the case, especially with Shankland, a very experienced striker as we know, and of course Claudio Braga on fire. And yeah, I didn't think he would have a comfortable afternoon, but I also didn't think it would go this poorly. And maybe looking at it in hindsight, and I think Brendan Rodgers will agree that maybe he should have went with the experience of Austin Trusty. Of course, I think his opinion is that he doesn't want two left footers because easier for teams to press. But if he'd had a left footer clearing that first goal, then maybe it wouldn't have been an own goal because it's a left footer rather than Dane Murray trying to clear it on his weaker side. So
Some
yeah,
finish.
and of course, someone who might benefit from this managerial switch is Jemai Simpson-Pusey because I think we obviously haven't seen him at all, and I believe he must be a very talented player coming from Man City. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets some game time. Well, Cameron Carter-Vickers is obviously out for 3 to 5 months after the injury he sustained at the end of the Sturm Graz game. Alistair Johnston, of course, will be out for a few weeks to months, maybe with his hamstring going again.
That was a mental decision, I thought, because I remember us speaking a few weeks ago about um, not even a few, it might have been last week's episode or a week before or something, talking about, oh, it'll take time and we might not see him back for a while. And then he started against Sturm Graz and he, uh, complete mismanagement of his health from the medical team, from Brendan Rodgers, from maybe himself. He might have went, I'm all right to play. And he's went out and he's hurt himself again.
Yeah. Yeah, it does look like that, but obviously you don't know with these things. He might have been completely fine and then it just goes again. But I would agree with you. I think he was probably slightly rushed back if it happened in the first match of him being back, and obviously a massive loss, massively disappointing for him as well because like his American partner defender at the back, they'll have their concerns over getting fit for the massive World Cup, of course, which the two nations host. And then, of course, Celtic's only real striker at the moment with Dyson Maeda injured, Kelechi Iheanacho, also pulls up with a hamstring injury in the first couple of minutes of that Sturm Graz game. So, yeah, it wasn't a strong Celtic side going to Tynecastle, but obviously I think everyone in the country, and rightfully so, believes Celtic should still have enough, especially with that midfield three. You look at that on a day. I know not the days not been many days or any days this season, but Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate, and £11 million Arnie Engels should be enough to beat a Hearts side. But of course it wasn't, and I didn't think it would be. I thought Hearts would. I thought Hearts would win the game, and I said that last week. And I think the real thing with Hearts is that I'm looking at their starting 11 right now, and there's not really anyone that's standing out to me in that team as a weakness or a passenger. You look at the spine of that team, they brought in Swallow, who conceded his first goal against Celtic. Before that, he kept clean sheets. Craig Halkett and Stuart Finlay, very experienced in the Scottish Premiership. As you say, Craig Halkett's been especially excellent, but Stuart Finlay's also been really solid since coming from Kilmarnock. That midfield two of Devlin and Beningame has been solid in the Premiership for years now, and they're really flourishing with great players around them. And of course, we know what Lawrence Shankland's like, and Braga's been, I think, along with Casridis, the signings of the Scottish Premiership summer. Then you add in players like Harry Milne, Ocean McEntee, and then Stephen Kingsley as well. Stephen Kingsley, is it? Yeah,
Yeah,
Stephen Kingsley. I don't know why I doubted myself there. Of course, another experienced
it
Premiership player. So
it sounds weird because of the author Stephen King. So when you say
yeah,
Stephen
that's what I
King,
was why I was doubting myself. I was like,
when you say
is
Stephen
that the
Kingsley, you think, am I making that up? Have I just, have I have I just done that because it's Stephen King? No, but you're right. It is Stephen King. But I'm sitting guessing myself. No, but yeah, it was fantastic. I completely agree. The team, I don't see weaknesses either, and obviously they get the third goal through a penalty. Another disaster from Dane Murray, a really silly challenge. Braga knows exactly what he's doing, but he's going away from the goal. You don't really have a need to dive in there. Just chaperone him. Just try and shuffle him away. Make sure he doesn't cut in on you. Just usher him away from the goal. Murray dives in, um, takes Braga down. Braga, he's waiting on the contact. Very experienced attacking sort of play from him. And we don't. I don't think we need to discuss that penalty decision too much, Ethan. No complaints.
no clear penalty, and as you said, Dave Murray. I think I don't know if he was trying to maybe I don't know when you're too excited and try to make up for the mistakes he made, but he just never should have been challenging like that in that situation. And it's one of those ones where you're screaming at the telly, don't give him an opportunity to go down, and that's exactly what he done. So yeah, but yeah, a disaster for Dane Murray and a disaster for Celtic.
So then Lawrence Shankland dispatches the penalty, and the game from then on in. No more goals. Finished 3-1. Hearts further solidifying the position at the top of the table. And Celtic, yeah, disarray. Even more disarray after the news, but after the weekend there, Ethan, you must have been feeling a bit sort of. I don't know what was your feeling after that.
Um, just sort of, I don't know, just the sort of validation in the thinking that Celtic weren't a good enough team to go to Tynecastle and win, because Hearts have been the best team in the league this season by far, and the league of course shows that. And Celtic are maybe even worse after these last two Premiership fixtures than what we might have thought, and the regression is possibly greater than I think what most people first thought. And seeing some of the stats to come out for on the weekend, this is a worse start to the league season by Celtic than the COVID season, which is one the Celtic fans will want to forget. They scored less goals in the time than they did in that season, conceded more goals than the time they did that last on that season. So yeah, I think that shows how concerning it is for Celtic, and the fact that Rangers have started the season so poorly, and Celtic have lost more league games than Rangers, and Rangers are only, what, 5 points behind them now?
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think there is real concern amongst the Celtic support, and rightfully so, because I don't
and
think us, as a
are Celtic playing Falkirk tomorrow as well?
yes, Celtic play Falkirk
A bit of a
tomorrow.
form Falkirk side,
Yeah, of course, Falkirk are up to fifth, fourth, is it?
something like that. They're
Well, I'll just double check. They're in the top six anyway. So yeah, as you said, they've been no sixth. Sorry, they dropped down below Rangers and Hibs after their wins, which we'll get onto. But that shows that, of course, it's still very tight in the league. But sixth place for Falkirk is a really good start, and it'll be a really interesting atmosphere to see the reaction to the managerial team's appointment, the sacking or resignation of Brendan Rodgers, whatever you want to call it, and how much of the criticism will be directed towards the board. I think it will be the same, possibly more actually. I think I would tend to say towards the board. It'll be a really interesting atmosphere at that game. Of course, one Celtic need to win, as I keep saying, because Hearts don't look like slowing up. We spoke about how Celtic had a better defensive record than Hearts this season. Well, now Hearts have a better defensive record than Celtic and the best in the league, going along with having the best goal scoring record by quite a distance. Crazy to, I'm just looking at the stats now, um, that Hearts have scored 16 more goals than Aberdeen, which is just ridiculous when you look at the two teams going into the season. We thought they would both be challenging for a sort of third to fifth place race along with Hibs. Hibs are obviously up there. Hearts have done better than I think anyone could expect, but Aberdeen way below the mark, and we'll get on to them. Also, the point I wanted to make, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think Hearts were excellent either, but I think they were just a team that knows how to get the job done, and that is what it takes to win a league title. You'll have some performances like the one at Rugby Park where it's fancy football, some nice flicks and passing moves and great goals like there was, but they took what they got, and they deserved their win. But I don't really think there was much in the game, which maybe for Celtic gives them maybe a glimmer of hope that they can maybe take something from the reverse fixtures, because I don't think anyone thinks this league season is done by any means. I think 8 points is at this
I
point in the season is
I
even if
don't
it was Celtic or Rangers, is a
I
very reversible
I don't think it's
tally.
done, but I think because of the result at the weekend and after, Um, and after the sort of news, Brendan Rodgers' resignation, I'm gonna put my neck on the line. I'm gonna say Hearts are gonna win the league.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not ready to make a decision on that yet. I think it's too early to call because I really do think that I don't think Celtic and Rangers can get worse. I mean, obviously they can, but I don't know. It's hard, and there's still so many games to be played. And as I mentioned, there's still 9 points up for grabs just between Celtic and Hearts. But the thing is, I don't over certainly to January is the point, obviously, that we think about at the minute, the next opportunity for the teams to strengthen their squads ahead of the run in. I don't see Celtic or Rangers picking up more points than Hearts in that time, and that's why your point is definitely a valid one to make because obviously they're in a great position. I think I seen on the football meets data that even after the Hearts going 8 points clear, Celtic were still 75% favourites to win the league, which I think is absolutely crazy. I imagine that sort of percentage has probably went down after Brendan Rodgers' resignation, but yeah, I think what it will do is it'll give Celtic a little injection immediately, not in the long term, but I think Celtic looked looked like they were being managed by, I don't know if you would agree, but they looked like they were being managed by a manager who sort of had one foot out the door.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think,
Maybe with hindsight, you could look at it like that, and
yeah,
I
yeah, definitely.
it's yeah, and maybe the players needed something new. Maybe they've been suffering under the sort of internal struggles between Rodgers and the board, and a lot of these guys aren't idiots. They although you might make that case for some of them. No, I'm just kidding, but you can't make you can't assume that this hasn't affected the players as well because it's like if you're in the workplace and there's like tension between someone and someone else. It's like the boss and the other boss or whatever, and the other employees might suffer in their performance levels, whether that be on the pitch or whether that be in an office setting.
Yeah,
but
no, I completely agree with you. I think people sometimes forget that footballers are human beings like everyone else, and if something's going on at the workplace and there's not a perfect harmony, then as I think that was that one of Russell Martin's catchphrases, then you can see it,
I
and
don't think he knew what harmony meant.
I think he tried to say that he was trying to create it, but whether that really happened or not, well, it didn't. But you see I think Hearts is a perfect example from top to bottom. Everybody's involved, everybody's happy, everybody's wanting this project to work, and it is working. And I don't know if a point you made earlier actually that I forgot to really address was the Derek McInnes one, and I would completely agree with you. I don't think he's maybe the stereotypical manager to go in and deal with this sort of data analytics, sort of signings and stuff like that. But he also, if you look at it from the other side, he's the perfect sort of manager that knows Scottish football very well, and he knows how to sort of adapt the players that they're bringing in that are obviously very very talented, as we've seen, and sort of make them good players at a Scottish football level. And that's exactly what's happened so far. Outside of the goals, I don't think there was any massive chances for any of the sides. Celtic had a lot of the ball, didn't do a lot with it. Benjamin Negron had a massive chance um, to put Celtic in the lead, I think, at that time where he sort of overdone it. And then Hearts, the only other really chance that comes to mind was I can't remember who it was that had a shot that forced the brilliant save from Kasper Schmeichel right before Dane Murray put it in his own net, really. So I don't think there was really much in the game, but Hearts took the chances. They played well. They never looked like being under much pressure from Celtic, apart from the goal, which was a really well worked goal and sort of showed Celtic of old. Cal McGregor driving forward and then working out to Kieran Tierney, and he cuts it back. It was a nice goal, but no, Hearts fully deserved their win, and it'll be really interesting now because the chase is on, and Hearts are Hearts have got the lead at the moment. A lot of people doubt whether they'll be able to keep it, but there's no signs of them slowing up at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll move on to the other SPFL fixtures of the weekend. I feel like we've spent like an hour talking about Celtic, so we'll try and streamline this a little bit. Obviously, the Celtic news is the biggest news. We'll start with Dundee United 3, St Mirren 1. Emlyn Dulu gave St Mirren the lead in the 18th minute before Zachary Sapsford then equalised. A Fata 84th minute pen put Dundee United in front. And another Craig Sibbald wonder goal. He's having his own goal of the month competition with himself, giving Dundee United the victory. Massive for Dundee United. They seem to have taken confidence from that draw at Ibrox. Obviously, they didn't look up to much for most of the game against Rangers, and but they did manage to turn it around. They latched onto that bit of confidence and perhaps were unlucky not to get the win. And they've gone on to beat St Mirren 3-1. They now sit fourth in the table, and St Mirren are in a bit. I've been kind of been saying this for the past couple of weeks, Ethan. St Mirren, I think, are in a bit of a lull.
Yeah, they certainly are, and it's 3 defeats in the bounce is not something you would associate with Stephen Robinson's St Mirren side. And yeah, it's kind of come out the bloom a little bit. Come out the bloom. Too busy saying, too used to saying Tony Bloom. Come out the blue. And yeah, 3 defeats on the bounce to Kilmarnock, Aberdeen, and Dundee United is not what you would expect looking at that fixture run, especially off the back of the win over Falkirk, their first league win of the season, then the massive triumph in the League Cup quarters, and then the win over Dundee. They look to be sort of getting into an early groove, a good start to the season for St Mirren, which is not what we usually see. Usually it's the end of the season of such a strong side. But yeah, I didn't see this coming because I think the first game against Kilmarnock, they were missing 2 of their sort of midfield three, which I think we all recognise as so strong. And Stephen Robinson said, what was it? He said it was the second best midfield in the league earlier in the season, with Keanu Backus, Killian Phillips, and Mark O'Hara. But it's obviously not looking like that at the minute. And yeah, massive win for Dundee United, as you said. And they're in a great position because a lot of people, including myself, doubted the amount of players that they turned over, the amount of players that they got rid of, the amount of new players that they brought in from different leagues. But it seems to be working so far. The chaotic dynamic has been successful, and the takeaway that when I seen this match was after Gogic's crazy red card tackle
Oh
and the
yeah.
penalty was that it was good that Amar Fata got that goal because from the spot because he was the one that missed the penalty against Rapid Vienna, if my
Yeah,
memory
he
serves
was.
me correctly.
He had the
Um,
post and
yeah,
had a really long run up that I think you were questioning at the time.
yeah. But no, it was good that he got that goal because the massive pressure situation. Obviously, Craig Sibbald, as you said, gets that great goal at the end to secure the points. But at 1 each, it was a massive moment in the game, and good to see him. Good to see him tuck it away. Zach Sapsford continuing his really good start to life in Scottish football goals wise. So yeah, the thing I would say with St Mirren is I don't think they're really struggling to create chances as much. Looking at the
They're
three
struggling.
games,
They're struggling to score though.
yeah, they're struggling to score, which is obviously
They're the joint
um,
lowest scorers in the division. Um, with Aberdeen, and mind Aberdeen didn't score any goals until about two weeks ago. So
yeah.
that is a bit
Well, maybe to be
concerning.
fair, maybe I'm being a bit generous. In the Kilmarnock and Aberdeen games, they did struggle to create chances. At the weekend, not as much, but obviously they don't take them. And Dundee United do take them when they come their way, especially with that penalty. So yeah, St Mirren will want to get back in the swing of positive results because, of course, tomorrow they host the league leaders, which will be a really tough test for both sides. Hearts will not go. I don't think many people expect Hearts to go there and blow St Mirren away. But saying that, we never expected them to go to Rugby Park and blow Kilmarnock away, and they did. So you don't know. because obviously they want to be in confident in a good vein of form going into that massive League Cup semi-final on Saturday against Motherwell at Hampden.
Yeah, absolutely. And the game, uh, just on the game tomorrow as well, I think that's an interesting one because if you remember, St Mirren drew with Hearts in the League Cup and then knocked them out on penalties. So Hearts might be looking for a bit of revenge, or it could suggest that St Mirren are perhaps the kryptonite to the champions elect.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting dynamic, one that I forgot about. And of course, they are the only team to beat Hearts this season. So yeah, that will be really interesting. And I think that's what we're saying for a lot of the teams in the league, which is really promising. I think on top of Hearts' runaway early lead, which I think almost everyone in Scottish football sees as a good thing. Of course, we want the big clubs, Celtic, Rangers, and I would say Aberdeen to be doing better because they're obviously big brands in the league. But you also want a bit of varying the competition. And we're also saying for a lot of teams across the course of the league that that's a difficult place to go. You don't want to go there. And I think it makes for an entertaining league table. And we've seen that is very tight out with Hearts, obviously, at the top. But
Yeah.
yeah, as you said, St Mirren could be the kryptonite once again.
Aye, but one point I just want to make before we move on to the Falkirk game. If Hearts were to go to Rugby Park and beat Kilmarnock, then beat Celtic at Tynecastle, then go to St Mirren Park and beat St Mirren, that's a massive 3 games.
Yeah, exactly. I was speaking to Adam Kennedy actually before the Kilmarnock game, and I thought that would be a difficult game for them. And he was saying that he would, I think I can't remember how many points it was. He said he'd be happy with out of those 3 games, but he said it would be a massive, uh, important 3 games, and and they've obviously passed 2 of the challenges with flying colours, and now you could maybe say that at this point in time, the easiest one on paper with how St Mirren are playing, but I don't think going to St Mirren Park's ever an easy game. So Dave McInnes will be drilling that into these players, and of course, as you said, they want to get revenge for their League Cup exit as well.
Yeah, moving on to the aforementioned 6th place side, high flying Falkirk with a 2-1 victory over Stephen Presley's Dundee. Dundee took the lead. For some, wait, let's see what Robertson is this?
Clark, back to back weeks, back to back goals for Clark Robertson.
Yeah, Clark Robertson got the opening goal, and then he got the second, tying it. But it was at his own end, tying it up for Falkirk. And then in the 89th minute, Connor Allen with a tremendous run and finish. Really, sort of intricate play from him. I was quite surprised to see that. He from a defender, he took it so well. He was so calm, and he just sort of poked it into the net. But it was a really nice finish
Yeah,
from him. And Falkirk with a massive victory. One thing I just wanted to focus on as well before. In 4 of the 6 SPFL games of the weekend, there was either an own goal or a penalty.
well, that is an interesting start. Yeah, of course, some games there was both at
Yeah.
Tynecastle, especially comes to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Falkirk, Ethan, really big win for them to get them into the top 6. A lot of people were talking about Falkirk as a dark horse, and then we were a bit hesitant and going, "Oh, I don't know if they've signed enough." And then it looked like we were vindicated, but they've got going, and now it seems, and they're on a good run of form.
Yeah, exactly that, and yeah, it's a massive sort of couple of games they've strung together with results. Of course, it was a really good point, which they definitely deserved against Rangers at home, and then they go to Motherwell, a tough place. Motherwell only losing before that game to Celtic, of course, at Celtic Park. So a massive win there, and then beating Dundee at home with an excellent goal. Probably as I'd say goal of the week. I really do. I know Craig, you've said about Craig Sibbald having a few excellent efforts from outside the box or from far out anyway. But Connor Allen, just a brilliant solo goal. I think it was the Everything Falkirk account on X that said Messi has just put us in the lead, and it wasn't what you would expect from a central defender, but it was excellent play and an excellent finish, and yeah, a massive win for John McGlynn and these players, massive confidence to take in. But I think we've seen with Dundee that despite the results, they'll go again, they'll keep fighting, and they'll have belief that they can
Yeah.
pull out enough to get in to stay in the top flight. Obviously, as I've said on multiple episodes, I'm not going to change my tune. I still have my doubts over Stephen Presley, despite him outstaying Russell Martin and Brendan Rodgers this season, which wouldn't have been on many people's bingo cards. But yeah, I think they'll these are two teams that will be there. I still think, although Falkirk have started the season well, I don't want to be a dampener, but I still think Falkirk and Dundee will be in the relegation mix.
Really?
Yeah.
Because in the next game we're going to talk about, I think I'm starting to get a clear candidate for 12.
Oh, a clear candidate for 12th, or I think I know who you're talking about. But no, that's
I know it's really, really tight down there, but they're looking woeful.
yeah, yeah, fair enough. Obviously, one thing that I've noticed with Dundee, and I noticed this earlier in the season, they're really good with well, not maybe not defending set pieces as the Clark Robertson on goal, a long throw, I think it was, will suggest, but attacking set pieces, they've been really good.
Yeah.
Of course, they got the Clark Robertson goal last week. They got another one this week. Cameron Congreve again, who's been excellent since joining on loan from Swansea City.
The goal
So
against Rangers at Ibrox was from a set piece, and they nearly scored off of a couple more as well.
yeah, well, Clark Robertson has 4 goals this season in 12 matches, which is and an assist as well, which is quite a ridiculous tally for a central defender. But maybe not when all 3 goals in the match are scored by centre backs.
Yeah, he's having a good personal season, and as for Stephen Presley and Dundee, I'm starting to sort of settle on the fact that they will never go on like a run, but I think they'll be fine. I think they'll just scrape out of it. I know
Yeah, quite possibly.
you're not.
No, no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm still. I've got my doubts, obviously, and I think I've always had my doubts, as most people have. And I'm not one of those people that it's not open to being proven wrong. I am, but I think I agree with you. I think they'll keep plugging away, and I think they'll get points here and there. Whether it'll be enough or not is still to be debated. But at the minute, that Aberdeen don't look like flying past them like we might have thought they would. So
Hi.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
Dundee will be safe for the meantime.
Okay. Moving on to my clear relegation candidates. Livingston hosted Motherwell. I just keep calling it the Spaghetti Had because that's tradition now, even though Tony Macaroni aren't a sponsor anymore. Uh, Jeremy Bokala gave Livingston the lead in the 26th minute through a penalty before Apostolos Stamatolopoulos. I keep saying this every week, but I'm really proud I've aced that name now. Gave got Motherwell back on level terms in the 59th minute through a penalty of his own, and then Eli Just in the 93rd minute gave Motherwell the late victory. Livingston are bottom of the table, Ethan. They have conceded 20 goals, 5 more than any other team in the division this season. They have lost their last 2, and they have not won since August.
Yeah, Falkirk was their only win, wasn't it, at home?
Yeah, they have not won since August. So I am, yeah, I think they're emerging for me as clear relegation candidates.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And I think Livingston were always going to be in that conversation. I think David Martindale, and I would completely agree with him, always goes on about the finances that is available to their side compared to even the rest of the teams in the league. And I would agree with it. It's difficult for newly promoted
That's
teams.
his excuse every time. He's get out of jail.
Yeah, but it's that he's right. It's not as if he's obviously done a great job with them in the past. When he's got them promoted to the Premiership, he done a great job, I think, to even get them back up to the Premiership in the first place. So yeah, I think yeah, I'd
Well, see,
struggle to.
if they do well, it's all down to him, and if they don't do well, it's got nothing to do with him. It's because of the resources.
Well, well, no, of course, it's got obviously to do with the manager. Of course, he takes a massive part in it, but you've got to like if they're doing really well on um, sort of financial limitations compared to the rest of the league, surely that's on a lot of that's on the manager. I would have to say. Whereas I feel like if they're not doing as well, then it's less on the manager because you expect them not to do well anyway. And maybe that's me being too generous to David Martindale, but I think that's probably why he's been the Livingston manager for so long, and will probably always be the Livingston manager for the rest of time. So yeah, but Livingston were unlucky. They could have easily took something from this game. I think Yengi had a massive chance to score. I think the keeper saved it, but. Yeah,
Run a goal must run in the Yenge blood.
yeah, they've not had a good start to the season, the brothers. But hopefully they can turn it around. But yeah, two penalties as you said. Bakila, I think that's his third penalty this season, possibly that he's scored. Well, he's got 3 goals anyway. I think they're all penalties. Oh no, actually, he
No,
did score one from open play.
scored a really good one against Falkirk.
Yeah, he did. You're right. And then Stamatolopoulos, I thought he was someone that might be amongst the goals this season. I said in a prediction, he probably should have a lot more goals than he does. If the stats or whatever the stats say, but then Elijah just really good to have him back fit and available. His first game
Yeah,
since
yeah.
oh no, he played against Falkirk. Sorry,
Apostolos Stamatolopoulos has 4 goals. His expected goals for the season is 6.3, the
yeah,
highest in the division.
Yeah, that's the stat I was referring to. I seen that the other week there, which is yeah crazy. But no, he seemed to have got his confidence in front of goal now, and for Motherwell, will be hoping that he could kick on. I thought it was just his first game back from that over month foot injury, but I forgot he played against in that defeat against Falkirk. But good to see him back and amongst the goals because I think he was one of the main players getting the most plaudits. By neutral fans and Motherwell fans before his injury. I remember him
Listen to
getting
this, sorry, listen to this as well, sorry. 0.95 XG per 90 for Stamatolopoulos.
that's really high.
Johnny Kenny's got 0.78.
Yeah, he's had like not a lot of minutes though, where Stamatolopoulos plays the majority of the game. I know Johnny Kenny's probably going to play a lot more football now because obviously Celtic's other attacking options or striker options even are depleting. But yeah, I was just saying it was good to see Just back in amongst the goals because I remember him getting especially high praise for his performance at Tynecastle in that thrilling 3-each draw.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
of course,
oh,
Motherwell have got we spoke about St Mirren. Motherwell have got an equally massive semi-final against St Mirren. They've obviously got Dundee United at home, sorry, which will be a really interesting game because I think a lot of games in the Premiership are hard to call at the moment. I couldn't really see that going either way. I could see that going either way, and I could see the semi final going either way. I think we'll give our predictions for both semi finals towards the end of the episode. But yeah, massive opportunity for Motherwell to help themselves towards creating history with their first trophy in a long while.
yeah. Sorry, I just went kind of down like a stats rabbit hole. Marco Lazetic takes 4.8 shots per 90.
Was that the most in the league?
Yeah, Johnny Kenny takes 4.7. Dan
Yeah.
Ellendula takes 4.6. And then it goes down to Braga at 4.1.
Yeah, well, but I think Braga's at the M's the he's probably the one that's played a good amount of minutes compared to the other three, I'd imagine,
Yeah,
which
Lazetich's
would make sense.
conversion rate's 25%. So yeah. Well, moving on to gosh, I've lost the fixtures.
Aberdeen and Hibs.
Aberdeen, Aberdeen hosting Hibs at Pittodrie, and they lost. Thibaut Clégy getting on the score sheet. Eliuan with a terrific solo goal in his own right, Ethan, to give them the 2-0 lead before Lazetic got one back in the 94th minute, but it was too little, too late for the Dons. And after that, humbling, humiliating 6-0 thumping midweek to AEK Athens. They then go back to Pittodrie and lose. And I think maybe the past couple of games were perhaps a bit of maybe a false dawn for Aberdeen, because it looks like they're back to their old ways. And one thing as well that I thought was really funny, I don't know if you saw this, Ethan, but Eliuan at the end of the game took the Aberdeen corner flag and put his Hibs shirt on it and started waving it.
Oh, I didn't see that. And, I was just laughing there at your. I don't even know if you meant it. Your pun. When you said about what was it? A fake dawn? You said, or a false dawn?
No, I didn't mean that at all.
But no. Yeah, Aberdeen. All that
That
progress that they
was
made.
that was pun intended.
No, no, you used that. You used that the other week. Can't use that again. But no, all the progress that Jimmy Tilly and Aberdeen seem to have made over the last three games before that thrashing in Athens, the great performance against Shakhtar.
That's a good title for something. A thrashing.
Yeah, 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 it is. The great performance against Shakhtar Donetsk, where they were unlucky not to take something from the game. Then they take out their league frustration on Dundee, get another positive result at St Mirren, and then thrashed. Well, I'm not going to say it again, but heavily beaten in Athens, which I didn't see coming. But yeah, Aberdeen are definitely up against it in the Conference League. They're heavy favourites to stay at the bottom of that Conference League table where they are now, of course, with the -7 goal difference inflicted over the two games. But yeah, really not a great result, and a pretty poor all round night for Scottish sides in Europe. And then,
We'll talk a little bit about the brand game when we get on to Rangers, but oof.
yeah, yeah, and then Hibs. I think they would have really enjoyed that one because, of course, I think the last two times, the last time these sides were maybe sort of in conversation was when Aberdeen snatched their Hibs's European place away from them. So Hibs would have loved to go to Pittodrie and get a bit of bragging rights over them. And Hibs starting to find their feet again after a sticky spell, but they're still in third and they'll be looking to close the gap on Celtic with only 3 points behind them.
Yeah, definitely, probably. They have seemed to have found their feet. That thrashing of Livingston the other week has, I think, given them confidence. And although the scoreline says 2-1, if you watch the game, if you've seen extended highlights, if you look at the stats, Hibs were clearly the better team in this game. They have 2.51 expected goals. Aberdeen had 1.39 to be fair, but 19 shots, 6 on target. They didn't have a lot of possession, but I think more and more we're seeing that possession doesn't really mean anything. I think I've seen that quite a lot this season, Ethan. I don't know about you. I'm paying it. Maybe it's something that for some reason I'm paying attention to a bit more. But
Yeah, no, you look at. I would completely agree with you. You look at what was the example I was thinking of?
sorry, just
Football's kind.
in the middle of the podcast there.
Yeah, the YouTube viewers would have seen that probably, but yeah, no, I would completely agree with you. And football's kind of went a little bit full circle, and that we've went from possession, tiki taka, back to sort of a wee bit more route one now. You would see, especially with the re-emergence of long throw-ins,
Did you see
and
Jamie Carragher talking about
no,
it? Because all the pundits ever did was moan about how modern the game's getting, right? And then Jamie Carragher did a big segment of moaning, going, "I think we've gone too far back."
yeah, I don't know. I think Jamie Carragher's probably just frustrated that the other example I was about to use is Arsenal, who you would have to say at the minute are favourites to win the English Premier League, and they are very well. I don't know. They rely heavily on set pieces, I'll say, and of course use your strengths to your advantage. But yeah, they're very good at it, and you don't always need to have all of the ball to create chances or win football matches. It's a myth that has been busted certainly over the last few seasons, and yeah, I think we've seen it, especially with teams in the league as well. You think of St Mirren, the perfect example that come to mind. They don't really rely on having much possession, and they've been, along with Celtic and Rangers, the most consistent Scottish Premiership side. If you're talking about top six finishes over the last few campaigns, so it shows you don't need all the ball. And I know there's a lot of teams in the league that are like to be possession dominant, and that's fine. But it's interesting and positive to see other teams trying different things, and it's obviously to came to Hibs' great advantage, and it's really interesting to see that by the end of tomorrow night, we could, I'm guessing, we could have the two Edinburgh sides sitting as the first and second place, which would be an absolutely crazy dynamic.
Although I don't think that's going to happen.
Do you not think so? No.
No, that's definitely not going to happen.
Okay, okay.
Hibs,
Um,
Hibs need to get through Danny Rowe's mighty Rangers.
oh well, we'll get on to Danny Rose Mighty Rangers. The final thing I was just going to say on this match was that Thibault Cleges finally got his sort of break in the team, and he's shown why they spent so much money on him. I know people will probably hold it against them and say if he doesn't score 20 goals or 30 goals this season, then he's a waste of money and he paid too much and whatever. But David Gray started starting him, and he seems to be repaying the manager.
Yep.
He seems like he's a really tidy player as well. So yeah, Hibs are looking really good. They're in a great place. What?
Kieran Bowie's washed.
No, I wouldn't say that, but no, he has sort of dipped out of form, goal scoring wise a little bit, but hopefully he can find his feet again and really be in contention to start games for Scotland rather than be an afterthought in the squad.
Yeah, although just before we move on to leave on another note, if anyone's in contention, if any striker in the league is in contention for starting for Scotland, I think Shankland once again.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. And the thing is that I have my doubts over whether he'll even be selected, is because even at the heights of Shankland's Player of the Year season, Steve Clarke sort of turned a nose up at him. So, yeah, I don't know whether I think he deserves to be in the squad, and I think he possibly will get a call up, but whether he'll be the man Steve Clarke turns to in those final two games, I would highly doubt it. I guess you agree because I think Shea Adams has been really solid in the game so far as well.
Yeah. Moving on to the final game of the SPFL fixtures of the weekend. Rangers hosted Kilmarnock at Ibrox, where Danny Rule, I think it's Rule, but I'm just going to keep calling him Rule because I'm not German, got his first victory as Rangers manager. Obviously, they were defeated 3-0 by SK Bran Bergen at the on Thursday in the Europa League. A disastrous first game for Roll in charge. However, he got off to a good start in the league. A really important victory for him, I think, that he got that win at Ibrox in front of the supporters. And yeah, I'm trying to remember. I've already forgotten all the goal scorers. I'm having a disaster. Derek Cornelius with the opening goal for Rangers. Wojciechowski scored, and it was chopped off rightfully for offside after a disaster from Eddie Beach. Kilmarnock equalised through George Stanger or Stanger. I'm still not 100% on that. I've heard different pronunciations of his name. A bit of a mare from Jack Butland in from the corner. He flaps at it and Stanger's there to knock it in at the back. And then Rangers take the lead through Danilo, a really nice header from him. He knows, yeah, I'm hoping this is finally the manager for Danilo because he's shown flashes. And he knows, he clearly does know where the goals are, but I think he's struggled under different managers and obviously with injury issues. And then Yusuf Chermiti gets his first goal for Rangers. A decent strike, but the keeper should have dealt with it. He doesn't. Eddie Beach and Jack Butland both having poor days in the goalkeeping department, but it's a really important win for Rangers.
Yeah, definitely. One that Danny Roll needed after that result midweek, as you said, against Bran. It was one that a lot of people looked to as a perfect opportunity for Danny Roll to start off his Europa League campaign positively. Obviously, it didn't go that way, but I don't think there's a lot of sort of criticism directed his way. It's difficult to come into a new club and get the players playing the way that you want to play in a week, especially in Europe when you're going up against teams who are top pedigree from their respective leagues, like Brann are in the Norwegian division. So, yeah, it was obviously a disappointment, but he went over and apologised to the fans, took accountability, which is something we've not seen from any Rangers managers, well, any one Rangers or other Rangers manager this season, which would have got a lot of fans on side that yes, you maybe didn't set the team up the best and didn't give us the best chance of winning or whatever else. But I think a lot of the Rangers fans understood the task that he was faced with. He obviously comes into the game on Sunday where there is no margin for error, there is no real excuses for why Rangers can't beat Kilmarnock at home. And obviously that's what they've done. And good result, good to get 3 goals. He obviously switched the team up quite a bit as well.
Yeah, started with a 3-5-2 matching.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I noticed that when I looked at that.
A show of tactical versatility, something we haven't seen this season either from a Rangers manager.
Yeah, and also good that the players he sort of started with in Norway, your likes of Chermiti comes off the bench this time and gets that goal that he's been looking for. That'll be a massive weight off of his shoulders because obviously a lot of people been sort of what you
What?
you looked at me like I said something factually incorrect there.
I thought I was in work on Sunday, so I didn't actually see the game, but I thought Chermiti started.
No, it was Miovski and Danilo that started.
Was it?
Danilo started his first game since Club Brugge, I believe, and Miovski came off, did start, but came
Oh,
off at half time for.
sorry, mate. Sorry.
No, no, not at all. And yeah, so it was good that he came in, and obviously a lot of criticism's been thrown at Kevin Farewell for the signing of Chermiti because of his goal record and whatever else. But good for him to get off the mark for Rangers, and it'll be the Rangers fans will be hoping he can carry that confidence and he can create a bit of a striker battle with Miovski, who's obviously very capable of scoring in Scotland on his day, as we know, and Danilo, who is very capable of scoring when fit and deployed properly, as we've seen that even this season when he played against Club Brugge and got that goal, which and that meant nothing in the end, but on the night certainly was a big goal. And yeah, he's got options, and he seems to have somehow created more options than what Russell Martin had. But maybe that's down to the tactical versatility that he has compared to the former manager.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple of individuals I want to highlight, but there's also just overall, in terms of basics, we saw from Rangers for the first time this season. A bit of fight, a bit of aggression, hard working, just not giving up on second balls. Just the basic stuff, that we haven't seen from Rangers at all this season. And one guy who I think had his best performance in a Rangers shirt this season and has struggled, I think, maybe with a bit of the pressure, maybe under who was the manager at the time. Young Jaden Magoma, he was brilliant in that sort of wing back role on the day. He did get an assist for Danilo's goal, a really nice cross from him, and he was up and down. And my dad before the game was talking about how we were talking about how we're limited because Magoma's our only left back, and he's not been great recently, and maybe we should think about trying something else or whatever. And it wasn't like a direct criticism of him. It's just because he, at 19 years old, he's come in and he needs to shoulder the responsibility of starting every week for Rangers. But on Sunday, he was really, really good. Tilo Asgard again. Shock when you let an attacking midfielder sort of play in like a free role and don't make him do stupid things and let him do what he was sort of meant to do. He's actually very good. So his feet look excellent, and maybe you could attribute that to fitness, but not Ethan pulling a face there. His footwork then is on the ball then. If we're
I don't know. You're just, don't know. You're giving him a lot of praise. So I didn't see it, so I can't really comment on it. But
Taylor Asgard he was really good last week against Dundee United. Obviously, he got that goal this week. He looks really good again. He's a player, and we're starting to see that now.
yeah, I think we're possibly seeing that with a lot of Rangers players that were maybe restricted in to show their best levels under Russell Martin, and maybe Danny Rowe will take the shackles off, you could say, and let them express themselves as footballers. The Jaden Magoma situation is a really puzzling one, not down to the player by any means. It's not his fault that he was signed and is the only left back, or sort of out and out left back at the club. I think it's a similar situation to Celtic's right winger issue. It's just something that shouldn't really happen at clubs at this level. It's basic mathematics. If you lose a player in that position, then you need to bring one in. Rangers obviously lost two in that position, so they had to bring two in. They only brought one in. But as you said, Jaden Magoma, from what I've seen and heard, was better at the weekend, and maybe with less defensive responsibility can sort of really make that position his own at left wing back. And obviously you've got a little bit more experience in Derek Cornelius, who can play at left back, as we've seen away to Sturm Graz. And funnily enough, something that I've just picked up on was that Jaden Magoma assisted the other Danilo goal this season, if I remember correctly, at home to Club Brugge. So that's a bit of a weird one. But yeah, Rangers already looking a lot better under Danny Rowe. But I don't think, as I said earlier, I don't think I expect Rangers, maybe they will, but I don't expect Rangers to go and win their next 10 matches or whatever. I still think there'll be points dropped along the way, and that's where I don't see the gap from either big Glasgow side being close to Hearts all too much. Maybe a couple of points here and there, but
this is where it begins. Not losing.
Yeah, well, possibly. Maybe it is.
I've already expressed that I think Hearts are going to win the league. I'd agree.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd agree.
What was there was a point I was going to make on this.
Plain sailing.
Yeah. I was just going to mention about Kilmarnock quickly. A real sort of sobering couple of matches for them, because they were third place, really on a high after the wins against Dundee United and St Mirren. They go into the Hearts game with a lot of confidence. They come away with probably not a lot of confidence to carry into this match, and then not comfortably beaten, because they did play their part in the game. They got the equaliser, as you said, but now they're down in eighth, and that's how tight the league is, that over a couple of poor results that you can fall that far. And you spoke about Eddie Beach. I've seen a lot of Kilmarnock fans really unhappy with him. I think his stats read really poorly. So yeah, I don't think he's really started life in Ayrshire too well. Obviously, he's the stand-in for Max Driek at the moment, and they've had to get Toby Oluwayemi on an emergency loan from Celtic. Yeah, Beach hasn't started well, but obviously Kilmarnock will have the chance to bounce back. It is two of the toughest fixtures on the cards at the moment. I think we recognise that regardless of Celtic and Rangers' form or situation, heading to their stadium is always a tough task, and having the runaway leaders at your own backyard is a tough task for anyone in the league at the minute. And obviously tomorrow night they welcome the one of the worst form teams in the league, the second worst form team in the league in Aberdeen. So yeah, they'll have confidence that they can win that match, but I think that's one that could go either way. And I keep saying that, I keep sitting on the fence for all the league games this season, as I do for who I think might win the title. I'm not ready to commit to a team yet, but yeah, it's a really entertaining Scottish Premiership season so far. Of course, as we mentioned, Celtic and Rangers switching managers, Hearts running away with the league early on, and just competitive across the division. So really looking forward to the next few months of Scottish Premiership action. And of course, we've got League Cup action as well.
Yeah. So before we finish up, I think we'll just, Ethan, you want to do quick kind of predictions for the SPFL matches tomorrow and then the League Cup at the weekend?
Yeah. Do you want me just to go through the games and give my scores, or go through a game each?
We'll
Sort of.
just, so I'll start and I'll go Celtic versus Falkirk, and we'll both.
Okay.
Martin O'Neill's first game in charge. One
Yeah.
thing as well, I think this must have been a quote from Talksport. I just saw there, right? Martin O'Neill insists that this is short term at Celtic.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we could have guessed that, but I mean, the Celtic board are known for throwing curveballs, so you don't know. But yeah, I think we could have guessed that Martin O'Neill wasn't a long-term appointment, but I think he'll buy time for himself and Sean Maloney maybe for a couple of weeks if he can get two positive results in two massive games over the next few days.
Yeah, absolutely. So Celtic taking on Falkirk at Parkhead. It's an interesting one. Ethan, have you got a score prediction?
Yeah, I think there'll be a as my favourite saying goes, I think there'll be a new manager bounce. Not
Oh,
obviously a permanent manager, but I think Celtic will. I
Martin
think
Ball,
Celtic will.
Martin Ball resurrected.
Oh, oh no, don't say that. I think Celtic will flourish. Not too much, but I think they'll have enough to beat Falkirk. I'm going with 3-1 to Celtic.
Okay. Uh, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go one each.
Okay,
I can't see them losing at Parkhead, but I don't know. I just don't know if they've got it in them for a win right now.
I don't know. They won the other night.
Yeah, against Stormgrats.
You say that like Sturm Graz aren't a better side than Falkirk.
Oh, fair enough. So moving on to Hibs versus Rangers at Easter Road. Danny Rowe's second game in charge in the league, his first away fixture in the league. Ethan, what are you saying for this one?
I feel like we're both going to show our allegiances with these opening two results. I'm going to
Oh,
go with I'm going to go with Hibs 2, Rangers 2. I think Danny Rowe will take a point from Easter Road, and it'll be a decent point because Hibs is a tough place to go, and that they've been on a good run of form. But I don't see Hibs losing at home to Rangers. I don't see Hibs losing at home to anyone in the league at the moment, apart from the Jambos. Obviously, they haven't played yet, so that's a hypothetical situation. But yeah,
I'm gonna go with Danny Rowe's first statement as Rangers manager, and I'm gonna go with 4-0 to Rangers.
okay. I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, you could be right, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't see that coming, but you might be right. You never know. Scottish football is a funny game.
Yeah, it is, and well, I've got a lot of my predictions right this season, so
You've got a lot of them wrong as well, though.
yeah, most of them are Rangers ones. That's because I keep predicting them to win. But
Yeah, well,
no, but I've got a
yeah.
couple of crazy ones, right? Like the League Cup quarterfinals, where I got like basically all the results
Yeah,
on
well,
three scorelines correct.
yeah, I think when it comes to non-Rangers, it's okay, but I think I remember you backing Rangers to beat Club Brugge both home and away, and obviously you know how that went.
Well, that was just blind optimism. Right, this is an interesting one. Both teams in need of a win. Kilmarnock versus Aberdeen at Rugby Park.
Ooh, that is an interesting one. I am going to go with. I'm going to go with sit on the fence. I'm going to go with a one-all draw. I don't think either team will have enough to take the victory, but I don't think either of them will lose. I think it'll be a one each draw.
I'm gonna go with 2-1 to Kilmarnock. I think they'll get the win, and Aberdeen's unfortunate run will continue. Another good game. Another good game on the cards. Every game seems to be a good game this season.
Yeah.
Motherwell versus Dundee United.
Hmm. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for the Steelmen. I think they'll get back to winning ways, and I think they'll progress up the table, leapfrogging the visitors.
I think I'm going to go against you. I'm going to back the Tangerines to get a win. I'm going to go. I'm going to go 1-0 to Dundee United.
Fair enough. These games are so the Kilmarnock Aberdeen. Well, all the games are so tough to call. I think that's what we're realising. That I did make that point that they are so tough to call, and that's obviously a really good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the final game, the league leaders go to St Mirren Park. The Smiza, um, St Mirren versus Hearts. Ethan, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna start off, and with. I'm gonna go with another 3 goal game for Hearts. I'm gonna go 3-1 to the Jambos.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to throw in a wee curveball. No,
Sean
I'm not actually.
Sean is
I'm
going to
not actually.
again.
I'm not actually. I completely agree. I was thinking 3-1 to Hearts as well. I do think they'll have too much for St Mirren. St Mirren on a bad run of form. Hearts on a very good run of form. I think they'll get the revenge they need and possibly extend their lead at the top of the Scottish Premiership.
And obviously, Livingston and Dundee have already played an additional game, so they will not be in action on Wednesday night. Now, on to the good stuff. The League Cup semi-finals are this weekend. The first of which is Motherwell versus St Mirren, 5:30 kickoff at Hampden on the Saturday. Uh, Big opportunity for both of these teams, also considering the teams are the old firms on the other side, which is usually, one of them is going to win the cup. However, based on how they've been performing this season, based on the state both the clubs are in, it's a massive opportunity for St Mirren or Motherwell to get their hands on a League Cup. But which one will have that opportunity, Ethan?
I am going to go with. I backed them to win uh, on Wednesday night, and I backed them to win in the League Cup semi-final. I think Motherwell will have enough. I think St Mirren are on a poor run, and I think Motherwell will continue that. I don't think there'll be much in the game at all. Maybe a 1-0 in extra time, possibly. But yeah, I don't see much between the teams. It's a really hard one to call. I think I know where you're going to go with this. But yeah,
Well,
I would
tell
think the
me
same
where
other way.
I'm going to go with this.
I think you back the Paisley Saints to get the job done.
How did you know? I'm gonna go.
We
I'm gonna go with 2-1 to St Mirren in extra time.
so we're both saying extra time wins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I've got an interesting stat that I've just sort of noticed here on the insights on Footmob. Motherwell haven't lost to St Mirren in their last 6 meetings.
That's just where they break the record.
Fair
Um,
enough.
so moving on to the final game, the second League Cup semi, 2 o'clock kickoff at Hampden, Celtic versus Rangers, an Old Firm, a Glasgow derby, whatever you want to call it. Mary would say it's a classic. This season, definitely not. So, Ethan, I think this is where our allegiances will show the most in predicting this game because we're clearly going to predict our own teams to win. But what have you got?
Are we? Are we clearly going to predict that? I don't know. Um, Looking at the insights here, Celtic haven't kept a clean sheet in 5 matches. Rangers haven't kept a clean sheet in 7 matches. So I think there's going to be goals in this game. Although the last
Yeah,
game between
the
the two
last one was atrocious.
it was the least goal-worthy game ever. So yeah, I mean this one is really hard to call, and I mean we talk about with this fixture form is it doesn't mean anything. Teams haven't got any form to mean anything in this game, so form will really mean nothing, and it'll be interesting to see what result both teams come off the back of on Wednesday night. If it's a positive one, I think that'll play a massive factor in the game. If it's a negative one, it'll play probably a big factor. I'm going to go with it to go the distance. I'm going to go a 2-all draw going to penalties, and I think there will be more penalty agony for Celtic. I think Rangers will beat Celtic on penalties.
Wow. Okay. I mean,
Yeah,
I'd take that. I'm a bit scarred from last season, and
yeah,
uh,
that. Yeah, I was leaving that open there to.
penalty agony could be used in more than one way for that game, as Rangers were denied a stone wall penalty in extra time.
Yeah.
Um, I'm still mad about that. Yeah, I definitely am. I'm gonna go. I'm not. I don't think I'm gonna go as long as you. You can tell I'm about to say something mad. Uh,
Oh, what's he gonna say? 5-0 Rangers.
Not quite. 3-1 to Rangers in 90
Okay,
minutes.
fair enough. I can't really argue. I would have more arguments for Rangers winning at Easter Road than beating Celtic at the moment. To be honest, that I think that as a game that could really go any way. You just can't see. I mean, it could really be 5-0 to Celtic or 5-0 to Rangers, or it could be nothing each. It could go to penalties. It could be 2-1. It could be anything. And that I think people say that for a lot of Celtic and Rangers games, and people say, as the phrase I just mentioned, form is eradicated for this game. I think obviously it does play a part, but this one there isn't any form. That both teams are struggling. I know Rangers got
But
their
Rangers off the
uh,
back of a win.
yeah, I know they're off the back of a win, but they're off the back of a really disappointing result in Europe, and they're also possibly off the back of, well, they're going to be off the back of one of the trickiest fixtures in the league, where I'm
Yeah,
not really confident that they can go there and win, unlike you. So,
yeah,
what?
they're going to win 4-0 and they're going to be off the back of a thumping victory.
I just think that my
Then,
my
then
reason as to why,
when Celtic draw one each, they'll be within 3 points of Celtic after that. So
yeah, they will be, but my reason to why I think Rangers might just edge it is because they've had I don't know, they've had a bet, despite Celtic being the team that's done better recently, certainly domestically over the last few seasons, especially last season. With multiple managers, Rangers have seemed to turn up and perform and get results against Celtic. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we don't know about. We don't know how Celtic are going to perform under Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney. We don't know how Rangers are going to perform in a high pressure environment like this under Danny Rowe. So yeah, it's really hard to call, but I don't have any confidence that Celtic can win that match with the players they've got at the minute, the injuries they've got, and I think that does play into it. So that's why I would give the slight edge to Rangers, although I wouldn't be surprised if Celtic win. It could really go either way.
yeah, yeah. Also, as well, if you're thinking about high pressure situations, obviously he wasn't the main coach, but Danny Rowe won a Champions League, so
Yeah, but that's completely different to being in the dugout. Martin O'Neill was the manager at a UEFA Cup final and won a treble, but Like it's different. It's not the same. A manager that was the manager 20 years ago and an assistant manager is completely different to being the main man here and now in 2025.
You forget what year we were in there. I think
Yeah, that's. I heard Martin O'Neill and forgot what year we were in.
that's a good place to wrap it up before Ethan's brain melts. Uh, Thank you to everyone for watching and listening. Make sure to go and check us out on all platforms: TikTok, just the Dugout, Spotify, the Dugout podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, check out the YouTube, the Dugout, and check out the Twitter at the Dugout 2024. I think that's all, and we hope you enjoy all the upcoming football action. We're getting into that busy period where we have football coming out our ears, so we're definitely going to enjoy it. So we hope you enjoy it as well. Thank you, and goodbye.